The night lay quiet over the Texas plains, except for the low hum of crickets and the restless shuffle of horses in the barn. The great house on the hill, the Cartwright Ranch, glowed faintly with lamplight spilling from a single upstairs window. Inside, the richest rancher in the county, Elias Cartwright, sat stiff in his chair, staring at the fire. His mind churned, troubled by a matter that had both tempted and tormented him for weeks. Elias was no stranger to fortune. He had inherited thousands of acres, more cattle than he could count, and enough silver locked away to make men envious. But beneath the surface of his success, a lonely truth gnawed at him. Wealth had never bought him love. Women who came into his life came for the name, the money, the status, but never for Elias himself. And then she appeared, Clara Monroe, the poor widow who had lost her husband to a mining accident. She was frail in coin but fierce in spirit, with 2 hungry children and nothing to lean on but her pride. The townsfolk whispered that she was too proud to beg, too proud even to remarry unless her heart compelled her. Elias had seen her at church, bowing her head with quiet dignity, her children clinging to her sides. Something about her struck him deeper than he cared to admit. For weeks he'd offered small helps, the sack of flour left at her door, a new pair of shoes for her boy, milk for the baby calf she nursed in the shed. She had accepted little, almost nothing, and each time she'd said, "I'll pay you back, Mr. Cartwright, once I find the means." Her voice had carried a ring of defiance, not of weakness. Elias found himself haunted. Was Clara Monroe truly the woman he thought her to be, honest, unbending, incapable of deceit? Or did her humility mask a clever hunger for his fortune? He had been burned before, women who swore they loved him, only to claw at his wealth like vultures. So he devised a test. On a night when he knew Clara would come, he had invited her under the pretense of discussing work for her boy on the ranch. Elias planned to feign sleep in his chair. He would leave his safe unlocked, the drawer where he kept his pocket ledger half open, a scattering of gold coins blending in the lamplight. If she was like the rest, temptation would show her true heart. The hour grew late. Elias lay back in his chair, his breathing slowed, his eyes closed but his mind sharpened like a blade. He heard the door creak open, the faint rustle of skirts, and the hesitant step of boots on his rug. Clara had entered. For a long moment, silence hung in the room. He felt her presence near the hearth, the fire crackling between them. Then, her footsteps moved closer to his desk. His heart thundered. Would she take it? Would she expose herself as another wolf in sheep's clothing? The sound of the desk drawer sliding made his blood freeze. She had touched it. Elias kept still, fighting the urge to open his eyes. Then came the faint clink of coins. And suddenly, her voice. "Oh Lord," she whispered, trembling. "Forgive me, but I cannot." The drawer shut with a snap. She drew back sharply, as though she had touched a burning coal. Elias's eyes flew open a sliver, careful not to betray his ruse. What he saw cut him deeper than any blade. Clara Monroe stood by his desk, her face pale in the lamplight, tears streaming down her cheeks. She pressed a hand to her mouth to muffle the sob that broke from her throat. "I won't steal," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Even if my children starve tomorrow, I will not take what isn't mine." She sank to her knees, her body shuddering. Elias felt the air choke in his lungs. This was no thief. This was no conniving woman scheming for his riches. This was a soul, raw and suffering, bound by honor even in the depths of despair. She stayed on her knees for a long while, praying in broken words, asking God to provide bread for her children, to keep her from falling into sin. And when her prayers were done, she rose quietly, wiped her face, and turned to leave. Elias's hand trembled on the armrest. His plan had backfired, but not in the way he feared. He had meant to unmask her greed, but instead, he had unmasked his own cruelty. "Clara," the word slipped from his lips before he could stop it. She gasped, spinning around. Her eyes widened as she saw him sitting upright, no longer pretending, his eyes wet with something she had never seen from the great Elias Cartwright, shame. You were awake." Her voice quivered between hurt and disbelief. He stood, his towering frame casting a shadow across the room, but his voice was low, almost broken. "I was a fool. I thought to test you, to see if you'd take what wasn't yours. I left the gold there, waiting for you to fail." Her face hardened, her tears drying into fury. "And you would mock me, mock a widow, mock a mother with nothing but 2 starving mouths to feed. "I meant not to mock," Elias whispered, his throat tightening. "I meant to know the truth. And I do now. Clara Monroe, you are the most honest woman I have ever met. You could have taken it, God knows I half hoped you would, just to ease your burden. But you did not, and I am ashamed." The fire popped between them. Clara's hands clenched at her sides, her chest rising with ragged breath. "Do you think honesty feeds children, Mr. Cartwright? Do you think honor puts bread on the table? My boy cried himself to sleep tonight. My girl asked if she'll ever wear a new dress again. And still, I would not take what isn't mine. But don't you dare think it's easy." Her words cut, but Elias welcomed the wound. For the first time in years, he saw the truth of his wealth, that it was a prison as much as it was a blessing. He had hoarded it, guarded it, mistrusted all who came near. And here was a woman, penniless, yet rich in the one thing he lacked, a soul uncorrupted. Elias took a step forward, his hand trembling as he reached into the desk. He drew out the ledger, the coins, the key to the safe. He placed them on the table between them. "Clara," he said quietly, "I do not offer charity. I offer partnership. Work with me, manage my household, help guide this ranch. Not as a servant, not as a beggar, but as a woman I trust more than any I've ever known." Her eyes searched his, suspicious still, wounded. "And what do you expect in return?" "My gratitude, my hand." His answer was simple, stripped of pride. "Only your presence, only your truth. Whatever else you choose is yours alone." The silence stretched, heavy and uncertain. Clara's breath shivered as she looked from him to the gold, then back at his face. At last, she spoke, her voice steady but low. "I'll accept work, Mr. Cartwright, honest work, but I'll not sell myself for your coin." Elias bowed his head. "Then we understand each other." From that night on, Clara Monroe came to the ranch not as a beggar but as a worker. She scrubbed, she mended, she taught his men's children their letters by lamplight. And Elias watched her, day by day, week by week, not with the eyes of a man guarding his treasure, but with the heart of a man learning humility. The townsfolk whispered again, this time in different tones. They said the mighty Elias Cartwright had softened, that he was seen carrying flour to a widow's home, that he laughed when her children played in his fields. But no one knew the secret of that night, when a rich rancher pretended to sleep, only to wake to the truth that all his fortune was worthless beside the honor of a poor widow. And though Elias never spoke of love aloud, the fire in his eyes when Clara entered a room told a story deeper than words. It was not the tale of wealth meeting poverty, but of pride bowing before integrity. And every night, when he sat again in that chair by the fire, Elias no longer wondered who he could trust. He already knew.